Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Zenaton, and welcome to today's video for Legends of Runeterra. Uh, Today is the day of the new expansion, Rise of the Underworld. We also, along with the new patch, have a huge balance patch. Well, this patch is also a huge balance patch, is what I'm trying to say. So we got a lot of the cards to look at that are already in the game but are getting buffs and nerfs and so on and so forth. Besides all the cards we saw in the past few videos during the spoiler season. By the time this video goes up, the patch shouldn't be live. It should still be a few more hours, but you know, hey, whatever. If you're new to this video and you haven't seen me do any of my other patch note review videos, quick summary. I basically just look at all the cards that are changed, talk about whether I like or dislike some of the buffs and nerfs, talk about some cards that may not appear on the list that I would have liked to have seen change either through a buff or a nerf, talk about how I think it will affect the meta, and talk about other things I would like to see. This is going to be a little weird because we're also getting a bunch of new cards along with these balance changes, so it's going to be really hard to try and make a prediction, but you know, I'll try my best. So, patch 2.11.0. I'm going to skip most of the early wordy stuff because it's mostly stuff we've seen already. Them talking about like the new cards coming up, the new keyword, whatever. We already know what lurk is. There's a new challenge that is teaching the lurk keyword, so that's cool. A huge wall of text here, basically. Put simply, just telling them, them telling us what they're trying to do, targeting the top of the meta. To them, the top of the meta is Azir Aurelia, Nasus Threshold, and Lysandra and Draven deck. Specifically, I would assume Ezreal Draven. They didn't mention dragons, which is nice because while dragons are decent, they're definitely not, in my opinion, a top tier deck. Showing what they're trying to like do moving forward. Trying to keep region identities strong, and trying to make it so each region is playable in some way. Basically, not having a case of Bilgewater at the moment. In other words, if you don't know, Bilgewater is very unplayable at the moment outside of maybe Deep, and even then it's very mediocre. Got some more not patch notes, but future stuff upcoming here. 2.11 is where we're at. 2.12 is what we'll have next. Summer event release, whatever that is. But it says that basically this paragraph, to summarize it, they might do even more changes in 2.12, basically the next balance patch, because this is a thing they don't really do too much, which is release cards and do a balance change. So that's nice. So if there's anything that's, you know, too strong, too weak, there's potential to see another balance change. And I would like some more changes. I always like buffs. They're always fun. It's like a mini expansion, if you will. Anyway, let's try to not make this video too long because there's a lot of card changes. So let's get right into the card changes. First off, lots of card nerf reversions. And first up, we got Misfortune. Not much to talk about here. The Misfortune has her old keyword. She is one of the card nerf reversions. She now has Overwhelm when she levels up. The nerf from her having Overwhelm to not having Overwhelm was never really a big nerf. It didn't really affect any deck that played Misfortune too much. Like, sure, Scouts and Pirate Burn decks were a little sad, but even they were not that sad because it's like, whatever. Usually if you leveled up your Misfortune, you're in a good spot anyway, so cool. I guess like maybe Aurelia, Misfortune, and Pirate Burn are a little happy, but it's not crazy. The next change, this one's actually a pretty decent buff. J4, Jarvan 4 buff. First off, seems like they really like J4. He's gotten 2 buffs in quick succession recently. First off, he got +1/+1, and now he's getting another buff. J4 now only needs to have 3 allies survive strikes instead of the previous, which was 4. That's pretty good. One much faster level up for him, and his level up is pretty good because of the free cataclysm. So I'm a little scared of Shen J4. It already was like a fringe deck, and then the deck Shen J4 is getting a decent amount of buffs, so I'm a little scared of Shen J4. Next card, this is basically a nerfer version. Tryndamere level 2 has Tough now, along with his Overwhelm and Fearsome. He used to have Tough as well. Before, back in the beta, they removed it, because back in the beta, Tryndamere was a pretty good card. And they're recently giving him Tough back. I'll be honest with you, him having Tough doesn't really change too much, but, you know, it's a nice, like, small buff, which is basically just like a bone being thrown to Tryndamere. So it's nice, but it's not really going to change too much for Tryndamere's playability, in my opinion. Next card, Karma. This is another nerfer version. Karma is now 5 mana. She used to be 5 mana, and then Ezreal Karma was extremely strong and extremely popular. On ladder, it wasn't so strong, but in tournaments, it was crushing it. So, alongside a lot of other nerfs, they made Karma 6 mana. And she never really recovered from there. Ever since that nerf to her being 6 mana, she's kind of been at the bottom of the champion food chain. Every other champion's pretty much been better than her. I'll be honest with you, I don't think this is enough. I've seen a lot of people say things like, Lux Karma's coming back, Karma Ezreal's going to come back. I don't think Lux Karma's coming back. Now, Karma Ezreal, maybe, but not because of the Karma buff, but more specifically because PNZ is getting a lot of strong cards. So that's why I think Karma Ezreal might come back. But Lux Karma, I'm not so hopeful on that one. I'll still try it out and play it because I like the deck, but I don't think it'll come back. But I like this buff. I still wish Karma got some more health. I always say this. I'm fairly well known, or my chat knows me for saying this, is that I wish Karma just had one more health, a little extra survivability, but, you know, I'll take the buffs that they'll give me. So, cool. Thanks, Riot. The next one, it's a nerf, not a buff. Irelia. So, Azir Irelia getting some nerfs. She now needs to have 14 plus allies attack instead of 12. It's nice. Slows her down by about 1 action, not necessarily 1, like, turn, but just 1 action. So basically like 1 blade dance. So she'll need to blade dance once more. It's fine. Like, it's not a crazy nerf. It's not a big nerf in my opinion. But it's fine. I don't think it's gonna kill the card, but I do like it. Now the next card, I like this buff. Riven. Riven now will reforge if you summon her and you have the attack token. Before, she would only get the reforge, the blade fragment, when you gain the attack token. So basically, if you summon her and you didn't have the and you had the attack token, she wouldn't reforge. Now she will. It's nice. Don't get me wrong, I like it. It is a big buff in my opinion. I don't think it puts her on the level of like Draven, but it is nice because one of the reasons Draven was so good is you would summon Draven and he would get the spinning axe immediately. Now, granted, Riven will kind of do that, but she still needs the attack token to reforge, which is not terrible. So, Riven Lee Sin maybe comes back? Question mark. It never really was around, but people tried it. Maybe it'll be decent, but I don't think so. Next card. Heimerdinger. I don't really think there's too much to talk about here. It's not, again, like I said, not too much to talk about. Heimerdinger is now a 2/4 instead of a 1/3. He got the +1/+1 buff. It's not great. I'll be honest with you. Like, it is nice that he's getting buffed, but that's all I really have to say about the Heimerdinger buff is like, it's cool. He can block Fearsome now when he levels up, I guess, but if you ever had to put Heimerdinger in combat, whether attacking or defending, you were probably either extremely far ahead because you're attacking with Heimerdinger, or you're in a really bad spot because you'd have to be blocking with Heimerdinger. So the health boost is nice. Like, he doesn't die to get excited anymore, so that's cool. I guess can't be like brittle steeled anymore or something, so I guess that's also nice, but meh. I do think Heimerdinger is a little bit more playable because of this buff, because it is a strong buff. +1/+1 to any champ is always going to be good, but I don't think it's enough to make Heimerdinger a top tier threat anymore. Back like when he was back in the Heimerdinger Vi days. Now then, the next one, a Hecarim buff. Not a big buff here. Very simple buff. He got +1 health. He's now a 5/6 instead of a 5/5. Just like, the biggest issue I have with Hecarim, I think Hecarim has is there's a lot of problems. I think is kind of deck that wants him kind of struggles to level him up. Like ephemerals, it's kind of meh. That strategy, like sure, Shark Chariot's okay, but meh. And of course, you can always be like, well, you can play like Harrowings and stuff. I'm like, yeah, but still. Also, the other issue is Nasus. Nasus kind of comes down on the same term as same turn as Hecarim. You try to play Hecarim, and you're like, cool, I have a 5/5, now going to be a 5/6, and your opponent's like, oh, that's cute. And then they play Nasus the same turn you played Hecarim, and he's like a 10/10, and it's like, well, you can't attack in because you'll just give their Nasus spell shield. And your Hecarim will die too, of course. So, I don't know. Maybe it's good enough, but I'm not really seeing it. I'm sure some people will try like Hecarim Lucian again or something, but I don't think this is enough. Maybe like Hecarim field promotion to give Hecarim Scout might be a thing. That sounds kind of cute, but I don't think it'll be enough. Now this one, big nerf here. First off, my poor Sun Disc deck, my poor Mono Shurima deck. Sad. But Azir got nerfed. He now has to see, or he doesn't have to see, but he now needs 13 units to have been summoned instead of 10 units. That's a whole 3 more units. That's a lot more units. Sure, with things like Deus and stuff and Blade Dances, it's not that many, but it's similar to Aurelia. It'll take at least one more like round of activations of Blade Dances and free attacks or whatever. So it does slow him down. I'd say it probably slows him down his average level up by about 1 turn or so, I would say, which it's good. Now, I will say this. It's going to be really hard to level up an Azir outside of a Blade Dance deck, but whatever. I really like the nerf, in all honesty, because I don't like Azir, and I don't like Azir Aurelia specifically. I still wish they would have nerfed him by either, like, just lowering his stat line or something, because he's so tanky for a 3-drop. But, you know, I'll take what I can get. It's a big nerf, and I'll take it. Speaking of Shurima, Nasus got nerfed. This nerf, in my opinion, is not a big nerf. Level 1 Nasus now no longer has Fearsome. Level 2 and level 3 Nasus still have Fearsome. Doesn't say it, but of course, because they didn't say it, they still have Spell Shield as well. So, Nasus Thresh, while this is annoying for them, it's not really a big nerf. Like, Nasus is still going to be a big boy. Like, cool, I guess you can now chump with a spider or something. But you're still running into the same problems, and that is, like, Nasus is probably going to be, like, a 10/10 or bigger by about the time he gets summoned in Nasus Thresh. And so even if you chump him, he's still going to level up. I don't think this is a big nerf for a Nasus deck. But maybe I'm underestimating how important Fearsome was for him at level 1. Next up, Severe. This buff is a strong buff. I don't know why, in my opinion, they would give Severe such a strong buff when I feel like there were other champions that were more deserving of a strong buff like this, but maybe they're working on it. We don't know what they're doing internally. And those kind of champions I'm talking about are like Anivia and Lux, in my opinion. But Severe now only needs you to have dealt 30 damage instead of 35 damage. A whole 5 less damage. That's a lot of damage. Sure, you might be like, well, that's only 1 attack with like a reputation champion, or a card that triggers reputation, basically a 5-attack champ like LeBlanc or Severe or Trifarian Glory Seeker or whatever. That's pretty meaningful, in all honesty. That's like really, really meaningful. And as we've seen from some of the nerfs, like the Azir nerf and the Aurelia nerf, leveling up 1 turn faster or 1 turn slower can be the difference between a deck being a top tier deck and a deck being like mediocre. But who knows? Maybe this will not be enough. Maybe LeBlanc Severe is still not good enough. But I think this will help out a lot. Level up severe is very scary. Next card. Who is it? Oh, Talia. I like this buff. This is a strong buff. This actually makes, in my opinion, this makes Talia a real card now. Talia now doesn't have to have a landmark on the field for her secondary ability to go off, her attack ability. It used to be that when you attacked with Talia, she would deal 2 to a blocker, and if it's dead or gone, deal 2 to the enemy nexus, and if you had a landmark, do that 2 more times. Now, you don't need a landmark. Now, if you attack, it'll deal 2 to a blocker 3 times. And if it's dead or gone, deal 2 to the enemy nexus instead. Now, it's reworded a bit and reworked, so it seems like it's capping the damage on the nexus to be only 2. So if there's nothing blocking your Talia, you're not going to hit for like 10 damage, 4 from Talia and 6 from her rocks or whatever. So that's kind of annoying, but the fact that you don't need a landmark anymore is just important. And plus, she's still going to hit the enemy units 3 times for 6 damage, 2 damage each. So that's a big, I'd say overall, sure, there's like it's like a slight nerf to her, like Nexus damage, but I'd say overall it's a buff for her. So that's good for Talia. She's gotten a couple of buffs recently. She got the +1/+1 buff, and now she's gotten this. She's probably really happy about these buffs. As are pretty much anyone who likes to play Talia. Next card, Tarik. Good old Tarik. He is now a 3/5. He got 1 health. He got basically the same buff Hecarim got. Remember when Tarik first came out? He was a 2/4. That was not a good time. Now, here's the problem with Tarik, I think. I still feel like a deck that plays Tarik would rather just play Shen, but now he is on the same stat level as Shen, so there is that, but I still feel like Shen is just usually going to be better as the support champion, and giving barrier is better than giving tough temporarily. And of course, you have the whole, like, he can copy spells, like Pale Cascade or whatever, Blessing of Targon and stuff, and of course, that's always cute, but I still feel like Shen is better. Plus, Tarik kind of struggles to find a secondary champion. I've seen some people say after these buffs, like, Tarik Riven now, and I'm like, maybe, who knows? But yeah, good buff for Tarik. I just don't know if he's going to be playable in the meta. Some people are like, Tarik Lulu. I do think Lulu might see a little bit more play, though, because of some of these buffs, but I don't think it's going to be in the form of Tarik Lulu. Anyway, next card, Aphelios. My boy, my son, my sad moon young man. He's now a 3/3 instead of a 3/2. Just, again, +1 health. His health nerf has been reverted. I don't know if this is enough to bring him back to playability, in all honesty. And the reason for that is he's still pretty slow. 3-mana moon weapons are really slow. Sure, yeah, they generate a lot of value if you're able to buy enough time, but it is really slow. Veiled Temple is still kind of a bad card, so Veiled Temple can't really be used to catch up in terms of tempo, and Veiled Temple is still bad because it doesn't give health anymore, so you don't really want to play it too much. But I like that Aphelios doesn't die to Mystic Shots and Avalanches and I guess Blighted Ravines anymore. That's a really, really big thing. And like I've tried to play Aphelios since like he's been nerfed, and just having Aphelios die to an Avalanche or Blighted Ravines always felt really bad. So this is a welcome buff. Nerf reversion, whatever you want to call it. And I'll take it. It's small, but you know, again, I'll take it. So thank you. The next card. We're gonna head into non-champions. But that's all the champions. I wish Anivia got a buff. Like, at the very least, make Egg Nivea a 0/2 again. I wish Braum got a small buff. Lux, Kindred, Zillion, but again, Echo is coming out, so maybe Echo will help out Zillion a bit. There's probably a few other champions I really like that I'm forgetting about that I would have liked to have seen a buff for, but those are basically it, like Kindred, Lux, Braum, and Anivia, I'd say. Braum, not so much. Braum doesn't really need it as much as the others, but the others really need it. Lux really needs one. Anivia really needs one. I'd like Yasuo to have gotten one. If Yasuo couldn't get a buff, at least I kind of wish he had gotten some good support cards in this set, and I don't think he did. Anyway, now for the non-champion buffs and nerfs. There's some really big ones here, and we're going to start with a really big one. Make It Rain. Make It Rain is now 2 mana. It used to be 2 mana, and then they nerfed it to 3 mana, and now they're bringing it back to 2 mana. I like it. I don't know if this is enough to help out Bilgewater, but this is really nice. Ezreal sees this, and he's pretty happy, so, you know, maybe Ezreal Bilgewater can come back, so that's always a good thing. Also, I guess it's technically also a misfortune buff too, because her champ spell is Make It Rain, so she's happy too. So I guess Scout and Burn players are a little happy as well, but it's not amazing. Also, Azir Aurelia is probably going to be bad now, but Misfortune Aurelia might be a thing with some of these Bilgewater buffs and Ionia buffs, I think. I don't think there's enough payoff for Misfortune Aurelia, but maybe. The fact that you don't get Emperor's Deus, really, I think is going to be the big one, but who knows? Next card, Black Market Merchant is now a 2/2 instead of a 2/1. I believe he used to be a 2/2, and then they nerfed him when Nab was considered OP. They nerfed other Nab cards too, but Merchant was one of them. Seems like they're reverting the nerf now, so, you know, it's cool. I hope Nab doesn't get really popular again. It was really annoying to play against, but it's fine. This card is still kind of playable as a 2/1. Maybe we'll see it a little bit more as a 2/2. Again, maybe it helps out Ezreal. Ezreal TF might become a thing again with, like, Make It Rain buff and Black Market Merchant buff. The next card, Double Up. Okay. This card. I think this card is nuts. At 6 mana, I don't think it's that good, because I was like, it's a little slow. It's 6 mana, a little too much mana. 5 mana, I think it's a break point. I think at 5 mana, it's good enough. And the reason for that is pirate aggro. Like, Noxus, Bilgewater, Pirate Burn, Pirate aggro, whatever you want to call it. The thing of it, the way I'm looking at this card is like, it's more decimates. It's going to be really hard for an opponent to stop this from killing something, because they're going to be playing for the board. They're going to be playing units on the field. They're going to be playing things like spiders or whatever, mountain goats, whatever, to try and stop your units from doing stuff. And then you will be like, oh, cool. Let me play my double up, kill something, and basically hit them in the face to decimate. Now, of course, there's always things like combat tricks like Sharp Sight and Hail Cascade and whatever to make this not work. You can also have your opponent might be able to just kill their own thing with, like, using their kill spell on their own thing to prevent them from getting decimated, or maybe even using a glimpse or something. But I'm looking at this and I'm seeing more copies of Decimate for a burn deck, and that's a little scary is all I'm gonna say. But maybe it's not playable. Maybe I'm looking too hard into it, but I do think this card is going to be seeing some play now. Anyway, next card. I like this card. One of my favorite cards in the game. Slightly playable card already. Slotbot. Now, Slotbot, like a lot of other cards, actually does something on summon. Used to be it only would get the buff at the start of the round. Now it gets the buff of the whole +0/+1 for each card you drew last round. Now it does that on summon. It also seems like on summon it will get the buff and it will do the shuffle right on the summon. So let's say you've only drawn one card last turn, like you didn't draw any extra cards. It'll get +0/+1, so it'll be a 1/5, and then it will shuffle. So it could be like a 3/3 or something. I think this is a good buff. I don't know if this is enough to put this card in a playable deck. This card has seen play in certain decks. The kind of decks that played Slotbot, though, mostly just used Slotbot as a way to stall and buy time for their other strategies, and sometimes would use it as a finisher too. Like, it would stall, buy time, and threaten to be a finisher. So maybe that will happen again. Basically like Jinx Twisted Fate. I don't know. I would like it to be playable again. I like this card. It's always fun. Now then. Next card, Confront. Not much to talk about here. From 3 mana to 2 mana. I mean, you're still not going to play this card in your deck, I think. But it's like a small Shyvana buff because it's her champ spell. So if you draw multiple Shyvanas, you're still going to feel bad because it's still a bad spell, but you're not going to feel that bad because at least it's cheaper now, I guess. But it's still not a card you're going to play in your actual decks. Next card, Mage Seeker Insider. Basically the only Lux buff, I think. This guy is now a 4/4 instead of a 4/3, so he'll be a 6/6 instead of a 6/5 when he's active. Cool. Not amazing, but cool. I don't think that's, like, good enough to make this guy that heavily playable, but he does see some play. I know Demacia Yetis plays this guy. They'll, like, turn 3 Remembrance, turn 4 Mage Seeker Insider, and you could try to do that with Lux as well, but Lux is just not good compared to Yetis, and Yetis even isn't that good in the Demacia Yetis version that plays like Garen, J4, and some Yetis. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the +1 health is good enough to help out this guy and help out Lux. The next card? Laurent Bladekeeper? He still does the same thing, but now he's a 3/3. Not really much to say about this guy. Really, honestly, the biggest thing here that this change does is he can block Fearsome now. That's really the only thing. Like, I guess the fact that my 4-drop can trade with a Merciless Hunter now is pretty big, but that's it. So, you know, it's fine. Like, maybe this guy will start seeing a little bit of play again. He sees, like, play as, like, a 1 of, maybe even a 2 of in certain, like, Fiora decks, like Fiora Zed, Fiora Zoe, but even then it's only like a 1, maybe a 2 of. Maybe like a Fiora Aphelios deck can come back again. It was an okay deck before, maybe it'll come back again. Because Fiora or Aphelios into Laurent Bladekeeper seems like a decent curve. Next card. Well, this is mostly for the meme boys. Basically me. Howling Abyss is now 6 mana. Cool. The meme lord in me is happy. The more competitive player in me is like, okay, so what? This card's not competitive playable. Like, sure, cool, it comes down a turn earlier, but it's slow. It takes time. It's heavily RNG dependent, and Scorched Earth exists still. And Comet from Targon, I guess. So, yeah, until this card gets, like, I don't know, like, an easy way to get Spell Shield on it that's not called Soothsayer, I don't think it's playable. And, yeah, you can, like, be like, oh, what if you play Howling Abyss, Soothsayer, Siphoning Strike? That's cute and all, but it's slow. I believe that's it for card changes, too. Oh, no, we got a few more. I forgot. We got the Ionia cards and the Targon cards left. We got Ren Shadowblade. He's a 4/3 now. Not much here. Ren's always been a weird card. He's always, like, been on the fringe of playability. I don't think this card or this buff's going to make him playable, but, you know, it's nice. He beats down a little bit harder now, so he kind of forces your opponent to actually answer them. Going from 3 to 4 does increase the clock against enemy Nexus. Now he actually kills them in 5 turns instead of killing them in, what, like 7 turns unanswered? So it is a decent breakpoint, but I still don't think it's enough to make Ren see play. The coolest thing you can do with Ren is basically use the Shadow Fiends that he creates as discard fodder for things like Rummage or whatever. But I don't think this is enough. Dancing Droplet. This one's actually a big nerf in my opinion. Dancing Droplet getting nerfed no longer has a tune. That is a huge nerf in my opinion. And the reason for that is, one, another Azir Aurelia nerf. Sure, it hurts other decks that would have played Dancing Droplet too, but it hurts Azir Aurelia the biggest. So now you can't do like turn 1 Dancing Droplet, turn 2 Emperor's Deus, turn 3 Azir. You can still do that curve, but not getting that 1 spell mana from the attune is really big. Because turn 1 Droplet, turn 2 Deus, turn 3 Azir, with some attacks, of course, would always bluff Shapestone. Now you're not bluffing Shapestone, and a good opponent will think to themselves like, oh, I should probably be careful of Shapestone, and I should block thinking about Shapestone, and they'll block with a bigger creature than they need to. Now, without that, it's kind of like, whatever. Droplet is still fine, though. 1 mana, 1/1 elusive's okay, and it has some text, too, and the text is actually relevant of the whole, like, recall to draw 1. So, sure, but I don't know. I think Azir Aurelia, if it survives, will still play this card, but it does really slow the deck down a little bit. Anyway, next card. I like this buff. I like this card as well. Green Glade Lookout. 2 mana, 2/2 now instead of a 2/1. Just 1 health buff, but we've seen it numerous times. A card going from 1 health to 2 health and going from unplayability to really playable. Think like Mountain Goats and River Shapers. They all used to have 1 health. Not sure how good this card is though now. Like I've played it before in certain decks, and most of the time it would just like trade for something and discount something in my hand, which is fine, but not dying to Vile Feast and pings in general is really nice. So big fan of this buff. I like it. I'll try him out in like Lux Karma. The next one, this one's a big buff in my opinion. Young Witch. She's now a 1/2 instead of a 1/1. Again, similar to what I said about the Lookout going from 1 to 2 health is huge. This card was already playable in all honesty, and going up to 2 health is actually insane. There's a lot of like 1/1s in a lot of 1/1s that are playable that are elusive. And so now that Young Witch can attack into those 1/1 elusives and, you know, not die, that's, in my opinion, really big. So I like this. I'm a little scared of it, but I like it. Helps out like Lulu decks. Lulu was probably the deck that played Young Witch the most. So Lulu buff. Speaking of Ionia as well and Lulu buffs, this is just a buff in general to Ionia decks and all over. Will of Ionia, now 4 mana. Used to be 4 mana. They nerfed it to 5 mana. Seems like they think the power level is fine for it to go back to 4 mana. A lot of people are scared after seeing this change. I know a lot of people are looking at this and they're like already having nightmares. They're like, oh no, Lux Karma. Oh no, Ezreal Karma. Oh no, Zed Elusives is coming back. I'm not going to say that's not true, but I will say this. Back when those decks were a thing, we had, well, one, the power level in general was a lot lower, and the game was a lot slower. The metas were a lot slower. And we had other cards that were also in Ionia that were really strong. Think like 3 mana Deny. Now, do I think this will be unplayable? No. I think Will of Ionia is playable. Now, we do have Homecoming. Homecoming, I think some decks will still play Homecoming over Will of Ionia. What kind of decks, you might say? I don't really know. Decks that want to try and protect their own units, but also like bounce enemy units for tempo. So maybe Karma decks would still rather play Will of Ionia. Basically, you know, use Homecoming to protect their Karmas, protect their Eye of the Dragon. If they're playing Targon, I guess like bounce back their Solari Priestess to replay it. Maybe. Lee Sin is probably happy to see this too. He probably likes that. Like triple Will of Ionia, triple Concussive Palm in a Lee Sin deck sounds really annoying. So, yeah. Great buff for Ionia here. Speaking of great buffs for Ionia, Twin Disciplines is now 2 mana. This is nuts in my opinion. I don't think it puts it at the level, but this now reminds me of Troll Chant, and Troll Chant is busted. But again, like I said, I don't think this is on the level of Troll Chant, but I'm drawing some similarities with Troll Chant here. This card is crazy good now. Ionia decks love Twin Discipline, but it always felt like it was just a little too expensive and wouldn't be doing enough. 2 mana for 3 health or 3 attack is crazy good. Sure, it's only temporary for the round compared to like, I don't know, Sunblessed Vigor from Targon, which is like 2 mana to get +0/+2, but permanently. I think this card is just crazy good now. I'm a little worried about this card. I'm going to play the card myself too, don't get me wrong. But this card looks scary now. I remember the time when this card was playable. Zed is probably really happy about this. Zed's like, oh yes, I can finally play this card again. I will say this though, I've seen a lot of other people say Zed might become a top tier deck now. The issue with Zed, I think, is Blighted Ravine. Blighted Ravine makes Zed and anything you want to use a combat trick to save a little awkward because you can't use a combat trick before the Blighted Ravine goes off. Now, I guess you could technically use a combat trick to heal up your unit if it had more than 2 health, but you can't use a combat trick to push your unit above 2 health before the Blighted Ravine goes off. So there's that. But against decks only playing like Avalanches and no Blighted Ravine for some reason, or I don't know, PNZ decks playing things like Mystic Shot, this is gonna be a little scary for them. Anyway, next card. Incisive Tactician. He's a 4/5. He's gonna be buffed up to a 5/5. I actually think this is a very meaningful buff. 1, he 5 power, 5 attack, whatever you want to call it, is actually a big breakpoint. There are 2 things I think that are important with this guy. Well, 3, I guess. The first one is he can help trigger Reputation now, but you know, by the time you play this guy, you probably actually got Reputation active. But the 2 things that are probably more important are, 1, he can now use Bloody Business. You can cast Bloody Business targeting him. And 2 or 3, I guess, LeBlanc's clone spell can now clone him, so you can rally again with her clone spell, which is, you kind of have a cute little like pseudo infinite combo as long as you have the mana, which is have a LeBlanc that's leveled up, have an Incisive Tactician, copy the Tactician, rally, attack in, get another LeBlanc spell, copy another Tactician, and keep going and going and going until you either run out of mana or run out of space or your opponent does something themselves. So that's cute. LeBlanc Ash will probably play 2 of these nowadays. Some of them were experimenting playing 2 of them, but I think now more so they will. And maybe some LeBlanc Severe decks will even play this too. So yeah, kind of scary buff. The next card, not much to talk about here. City Breaker's a 1/5 now, was a 0/5. Again, like, this card's not really playable. I don't think giving it 1 attack is gonna make it a good card. I've seen people talk about like, oh yay, Swain buff. It's cool. It's not meaningful. Jaymadarda? They really like this guy. They keep giving him buffs and stuff. He's now a 5/5. 6 mana for a 5/5 is not terrible, but when I'm playing a 6-drop, I kind of want it to do stuff. And yeah, there is the dream, and you play like Jay, and then you have 3 spell mana, and you gem him up or whatever, but it's meh. Maybe there's some like weird OTK, or maybe draw a lot of cards combo that can show up, but that's pretty much what everyone says with Jaymadarda, and it never turns out to be true. Next one. This card is one of the worst cards in PNZ. Midden Stock Henchmen. 5 mana, 5/3. It's going up to a 5/4 now. It's cool. It's technically a buff to like mono Piltover and Zon. You play the Piltover and Zon Allegiance card, get the free Sumpwork map, play a turn 5 Midden Stock Henchman, play the Sumpwork map on it, Nexus strike your opponent with the elusive Midden Stock Henchman and get another copy of that. So that's cute, but I don't think it's good enough. I mean, not dying to get excited is a real buff, though. It's like, that's definitely a breakpoint from 3 to 4 health, but I don't think it's enough. Just a little too slow and just not enough value, in my opinion, for a card that's 5 mana. Rummage, big change here. Going to 2 mana. 1 to 2 mana is not the biggest change, but it isn't a meaningless change. Ezreal Draven probably doesn't care that much about this. Neither does Discard Aggro. Discard Aggro probably cares a little more than Ezreal Draven, because their mana's a little bit tighter than Ezreal Draven, in my opinion. So it's going to be harder for them to level up a Jinx really quickly, but that's pretty much it. I've always, for the past, like, I'd say like half a year or so, been an advocate of saying Rummage is a little OP and probably needs a nerf, and it seems like they decided to agree with me, and they've decided to nerf Rummage now, so that's cool. And the reason I always said it was a little OP is because with the more and more cards that create fleeting cards, like think like Ballistic Bot creating the Ignitions, or just cards that just create cards in general, like Mountain Goat creating gems, or so on and so forth, I thought this card got better and better and better, because most of the time it would just turn into a 1 mana draw 2. So now it's only a 2 mana draw 2, which is still strong, but you need cards to discard to it, so whatever. Also, I guess like Draven Axes were another thing you could discard to it. Next card, though. Another Ezreal Draven nerf. TriBeam is now 5 mana. It's fine. It's not a big nerf to Ezreal Draven. Like, Ezreal Draven's still going to play 3 TriBeams. TriBeam is still a really strong card. Still a really big tempo swing. Killing an enemy unit, getting something is still really big. Of course, as always with TriBeam, RNG can screw you. I've played TriBeams myself. I've definitely lost to TriBeam hitting the wrong unit and just completely destroying me. Hitting things like the 4-mana 5/5 guy in Noxus, the Blood Boy, whatever his name is. And then he would ping my board and actually wipe out some of my units. Of course, hitting the Solitary Monk and having your board get bounced is always annoying, etc., etc. Anyway, next card. Watcher. Really nice nerf here. A lot of people have said this nerf is going to kill the Watcher and kill Lissandra Trundle. I disagree. Watcher is now, instead of obliterating the entire deck, they are going to obliterate all but 3 non-champion cards. So basically pulling a Maokai kind of. And the reason I don't think this is going to kill the deck, Watcher decks, is because you still have the Watcher on the field, most likely. And it's still an 11-17. Now, sure, of course, if you made it ephemeral or whatever to cheat out with Spectral Mage, no, but you will probably have the Watcher itself, the real one, the non-ephemeral one in your hand. 11-17's doing a lot of work. And plus, it's like, you can argue like, well, I can jump it. But you have to remember, you also had your deck get obliterated. So unless you have a way to refill your deck, you're going to be in a little bit of trouble. So yeah, I don't know. I do think it's a decent nerf to TLC, Trundle Lissandra control, but I don't think it's going to be a big enough nerf to completely kill the deck like I've seen some people say. The next card, it's a buff, Rasa. I got a little excited when I saw this. When I saw this was getting buffed, because I thought they were reverting the nerf. If you don't know, Rasa used to be a 7-mana card. They didn't revert the mana cost. Instead, they gave Rasa +1/+1. That's not the problem with Rasa. Rasa's problem is not their stat line. It's the fact that he is an 8-mana card, and compared to other 8-mana cards I actually see play, he's just not good enough. And basically, the one 8-mana card that sees a lot of play is like, what, Captain Farron? Rasa is not on the level of Captain Farron. And mainly because your opponent has time to react to Rasa, so they can play like Vile Feast or something to summon units to try and absorb the Rasa playability, if that makes sense. So yeah, this is not enough to make Rasa see play. Duskrider, not a big change here, just +1 attack. It's now a 3/5 instead of a 2/5. It's nice for like Unspeakable Horror, I guess, like the 2 damage Nightfall ping that gives you a random Nightfall card. Outside of that, I don't think it's gonna make it playable. I've seen some people who are Nightfall players say like, oh, you can play Duskrider in a Nightfall deck and use it with Atrocity. I feel like if you're trying to do that, you're just playing Scuffed Nasus, like Scuffed Nasus Thresh. But what do I know? I'm not really a Nightfall player. The next card, this one's a pretty big nerf. Escaped Abomination. It's now a 4/2. How the Mighty Have Fallen. You used to be a 4/4 Escaped Abomination, then you became a 4/3, and now you're a 4/2. I still think the card is playable. Curse Keeper itself. Curse Keeper Butcher is still decent. Like, you get a 3/2 and a 4/2, and you get a Slay trigger if you care about that. And plus, it still gives you a lot of board presence for only 2 mana and 2 cards. So, while this is a big nerf, and Abomination dying to Avalanche is really big, I don't think this, along with the small Nasus nerf they did, is enough to stop Nasus Thresh. I think Nasus Thresh will still be a solid deck in the upcoming set. This one I like. Stalking Shadows. It's now 3 mana. Used to be 2 mana. Not really much to unpack here. This card's always been good. Great selection, great filtering, whatever you want to call it. Really cheap too. Activated Nightfall. Going to 3 mana is nice. It slows down certain decks, like decks that would play Doom Beast for burn. So that's nice. Gives your opponents a little bit, gives players a little bit more time to react to things like Doom Beast and try and stabilize. So I like it. Next card. Oh, we're heading to Shurima. This one, I don't know why they buffed. Clockhand was a 4/7. Now it's a 7/7. That's a big buff. Going from 4/7 to 7/7, getting basically +3/+0. So it was already a slightly playable card. It would see play as like a 1 or 2 of in turbo thralls. And while you would see this and you'd be like, okay, sure, Clock Hand, the thralls are popping out now, but Clock Hand's only a 4/7. I'll just like take the 4 damage from the Clock Hand or whatever. Now you can't really ignore Clock Hand. 7 damage is a real threat. A 7/7 for 8 is kind of scary. It's kind of reminding me of Captain Farron now. Sure, if you don't have anything like a Frozen Thrall or something on the board, it's kind of mediocre because of the instant sentries. They're only going to create random countdowns, but this is scary in my opinion. I'm really scared of this card. And of course, I guess I should mention it, but like Sun Disc, yay. But okay, cool. Sun Disc, Lamau. Another Shurima card, Raz Bloodmain. It's now a 7/7 instead of 6/6. I mean, like, sure, cool. I don't think there's really a fearsome deck that is like a Shurima fearsome deck that would play Raz anyway. There's always the cute thing I've seen, which is like Raz, Shadow Isles, fearsome, using Harrowing and bring back Raz, which is kind of cute, but I don't know. I think fearsome decks just have better finishers than Raz, and I don't think this stat line increase is going to be enough. Dunekeeper. I like this nerf. He is now a 1/2 for 1 instead of a 2/1. They just basically flipped his stats. It's nice. He's not as aggressive anymore, can't be pinged anymore, but whatever. Deals a little bit less damage in the early game, makes it so your opponents can't high roll as much. Basically, instead of dealing 4 damage on an empty board, he now only deals 3 damage, and he leaves behind a 1/2, and a 1/2 is much worse for an aggro deck than a 2/1, so that's nice. Honestly, probably a buff for control decks that would play Dunekeeper. Control decks that would just play Dunekeeper because he would give you a lot of board presence for a little amount of mana. And now that he's a 1/2, those control decks that would play this guy are probably a lot happier, in fact. Still, though, overall, I'd say it's a nerf. Next card, Mountain Sojourners. We're heading into Targon balance changes. Big change. It is now a 4/5 instead of a 2/5. It can block fearsome now, I guess. That's nice. It actually will kill stuff now when your opponent blocks it. I like it. Helps out Lulu. So always a good thing, always a welcome thing for like the support archetype to see some buffs, because the support archetype is kind of failing a little bit. Sun Guardian, Leona buff basically. Leona decks don't really play Sun Guardian, but this going to 4/4 is nice to see. Helps out Ravun, I guess, so you're not that sad to see this card from Ravun, so that's nice, but it's not really a big buff. And now it's a nerf. Star Shaping now only heals 4 instead of 5. I still think it's a good card, it's just a little bit worse. But most of the time you didn't really use Star Shaping to stop your opponent's aggro. You were like, okay, I'm gonna Star Shaping and not use it to try and like slow my opponent down, if that makes sense. You would want to fight for the board and then use Star Shaping to get out of burn range / find a win con like a Immortal Fire or something. So I still think Star Shaping is going to be playable. Maybe not as a 3 of in certain decks. Maybe it'll go down to 1 or 2 of. Serpent. Now 1/1. I hate it. I hate it. I hate that they nerfed it. I like Serpent. Serpent's one of my favorite cards. I love Targon, in all honesty, but yeah, it's a 1/1. I'll still choose Serpent when I'm doing cheap invokes sometimes, because again, it's a 0 mana card, so cool, but it's not really going to kill anything anymore, so that's a little annoying, but whatever. Serpent was a little strong for what it did, but it's fine. And this one. This is actually probably the biggest Targon nerf, in my opinion. Fangs. Fangs is now a 2/2. I've talked so much about how cards being able to block fearsomes is a thing. Well, Fangs was one of the cards that was really good because it could block fearsome. Not being able to block fearsome now kind of makes it bad. I wish they had made it 3 mana. Like, sure, you might argue, like, sure, it still invokes, and you can still find things like Equinox, but I'm not really in the business of playing a 4-mana 2/2 Lifestealer that, sure, it invokes, but I'm not that impressed by it. But again, who knows? Maybe we'll have to play it because we need the lifesteal. But Solari Sunforger, the 4-mana 5/4, is definitely a solid consideration now, I guess, if you really need a big amount of lifesteal. I believe that's it, too. I think that is the last nerf. Yep. I'll say this about Targon. I really wish they had nerfed Equinox. Even though I love playing Targon myself, I still think Equinox was a little too much value for 1 mana. I don't know how they could nerf Equinox, but I wish they had nerfed Equinox instead of nerfing, like, I don't know, Serpent and Fangs. But yeah, all these changes. Turbo Thralls, in my opinion, came out like a bandit. Watcher getting nerfed, sure, it hurts Turbo Thralls a little, but they didn't care too much about the Watcher. Watcher was always like the, okay, if I haven't killed them yet, let's try Watcher kind of plan. Usually they would just win with like 2 or 3 Thralls. And again, Clawcan getting a buff too for their Turbo Thralls deck is nice. Talia as well getting the buff as well is pretty good as well. So yeah, Turbo Thralls is happy in my opinion. Meanwhile, every single Targon deck is probably sad, except for Lee Sin. Lee Sin didn't really play Fangs, and it didn't really play Star Shaping. Maybe played it as a 1 or 2 of if it really wanted healing, but didn't really play it. And Will of Ionia and Twin Disciplines seems pretty decent for Lee Sin, so Lee Sin's probably happy. Azir Aurelia is probably not that happy right now. They got a lot of nerfs. Azrael Draven's probably a little sad too, but they'll survive their 3 nerfs, I believe. They got Rummage, TriBeam, and I feel like something else got nerfed that I can't remember in all honesty. But they'll survive it. What else? Nasus Thresh. Nasus Thresh didn't really get nerfed too hard. I think Nasus Thresh will be fine. TLC is still, in my opinion, solid. I still think TLC is probably going to be like the best of the Freljord Shadow Isle style control decks because there's only really what, like Feel the Russian and Nivea as competition. I don't think either of those are better than TLC. 1, because TLC is faster, even though Watch has been nerfed. But 2, Ionia's gotten a lot of nerfs, and the better and better Ionia gets, the more and more people play Ionia, and the more and more people that play Ionia, the more potential denies are in the meta. And again, if people start to play things like Feel the Rush and it gets popular, people will just start playing more and more denies in their Ionia decks. I believe that's it. I believe those are all the top decks that I've mentioned and how they will be affected. So yeah, between this and the new set of cards, we have a very interesting meta coming up, a very wide open meta to crack open. Let's look really quickly before we end the video about the last few things. There's still some more things to talk about. Prologue update, just adding some extra stuff for the prologue, which is the tutorial. I believe it's just like a little faster now. There's also even a deck now you're going to get or something. The region roads have been updated as expected. Also, for the Lab of Legends players, 3 new champions. Echo, Pike, Reksai, Swain, and Shyvana are now in the mode, so that's cool. Got some skins, too. We got 2 new skins for the 2 of the 3 new champions. Got an Echo skin and a Pike skin. Pike skin, in my opinion, looks really sweet, too. Echo skin, not so much, but it's not bad. But the Pike skin is sweet. Also, Pike Board. Really nice looking. I really like the Pike Board. I'm not going to use it. I like the board I got now, but the Pike Board's really nice. What else we got? We got a Pike Card back as well. Looks really cool. Very spooky. Very scary looking there, Pike. This image looks weird, by the way, but whatever. Also, a Reksai card back. Very good. Mommy Reksai here. And a couple of emotes, too. Got a Pike emote. Pretty nice. Probably not going to buy it, but it's not bad. Echo. Got a couple of Echo emotes here. First one looks pretty good. Good BM potential here. Second one, it's not as versatile, but it's not bad. Probably not going to buy them. I like the emotes I currently use right now, but they are very well done, so that's cool and all. Also, like always, whenever they release new stuff, we got a bundle here. Got a bunch of stuff in it. It's cool. Also a deck bundle. Seems like they're pairing what? Echo and Zillion, so that's cool. It seems like if you get the deck bundle, you can also get like, it also gives you the Echo skin and Echo emote, so that's cool. And of course, like some other stuff, expedition changes, bug fixes, and that's it though. So, like I said though, I wanted to make this a fast video, but it's almost an hour long because there were a lot of changes. This is one of the biggest balance patches we've had in the history of the game, in all honesty. I'd say this is like a back in beta kind of balance patch, but really big balance patch. Can't wait to see what it will do. So let's not make this video any longer. So let's just end it here. Hope you all enjoyed it. I'd love to hear any kind of opinions you have on the upcoming set and the balance changes. Maybe you think something should have been changed that wasn't changed. Maybe vice versa. Maybe you think something shouldn't have been changed that was changed. Again, tell me down below. I'd love to hear it. Also, if you just enjoyed the video in general, I would love it if you could leave a comment or a like down below. Also, if you want to keep up with the Legends of Runeterra content, you can always go and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to watch me play some Legends of Runeterra, you can always go and check me out over on my Twitch account at twitch.tv/Zenaton. I stream there pretty much every single day. Anyway, though, with that all said and done, thank you all again once more for watching this video. And until I see you guys in the next one, bye!